All right, let's get started. Last meeting of 2022. So let's make sure we have a quorum. We do, but I just want you, Tanya, if you could please call all commissioners by name.
Yes, okay. So I'll take roll. Chair Delany.
Present.
Vice Chair Hecht. Commissioner Texler.
Here.
Commissioner Liu.
You muted, Shopping.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Van Rees.
Here.
Commissioner Humayun.
Present.
And Commissioner Whedon.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Do we have any comments from the public on items not on the agenda? Please raise your hand if you have one to make.
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Gary.
Well, as you can see from the background, we do have the Winter Solstice Night Bike Ride coming up on December 21st. So just go to the Eventbrite or Greentown Los Altos. You can sign up for that. I've got 7 people signed up, so it's a small group right now, but we hope for more. And the second item, again, with Greentown, we are planting trees again. We're up to 319. The goal is 500. And so the point of my interrupting the proceedings tonight is to if you want to help me plant a tree, I've got about 20 of them to go. And over the Christmas break, I'm going to be working with the students, trying to get them out there. And you are welcome to help plant a tree as well. Hope you can join me. You can go to Greentown Los Altos. Just send me an email, Gary@greentownlosaltos.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Any other public comments? I think that's it. Thank you. So let's move on with the agenda. First, I would like to go through ask the commissioners if they had any comments or edits on the last meeting minutes.
I'll move acceptance of the minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Don and Laura.
Thank you. I will take a vote for the rest of the commissioners to approve the minutes. So Chair Delany.
Yes.
Commissioner Liu.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Rees.
Yes.
Commissioner Humayun.
Yes.
And Commissioner Whedon.
Yes.
The meeting minutes for October 24th special meeting are approved.
Thank you, Tanya. Next item on the agenda is about the meeting in January 9. We have the vice chair, Tom Hecht, and myself. We won't be present, so we need to designate. I believe we have a quorum, despite the fact that we won't be around. So because we have a quorum, we can move forward. We just need to designate chair pro tem for the meeting. Any volunteer to chair the meeting on January 9? Okay.
I'm happy to do it. I'm just confusing myself because I'm looking at my calendar. For some reason, I have the 23rd as the commission meeting. So
Yes, so maybe staff can clarify this point, because I know that you were polled with regards to the January 16, potentially moving the meeting to either January 16 or January 23rd. January 16 is a holiday, so that was not possible, but I think there was a quorum for the 23rd. But I'll let staff explain why we move forward with January 9.
Yeah, thanks, Bruno. So because we do have a quorum for the original meeting date, protocol would be to continue having that meeting on the original meeting date. Yeah.
I'm happy to chair it.
So I just want to confirm, since all the commissioners that will be that have said they would be present at the January 9 meeting. I just want to confirm that it's still the case and we have a quorum for January 9. So that's Carl, Xiaoping, Laura, Rashina, and Don.
So at this moment, that seems to be the case. No guarantees for what happens in the future, though.
Got it.
Okay,
Same.
thank you.
All right. So Laura Texler will be the chair for the meeting on January 9.
And
I-
Chair Delanu, this is Director Zorns. I just wanted to jump in and I've been working with Tanya and Director Fairman late this evening in regards to just looking at kind of the potential schedules and everything. The one thing I'd like to somewhat just at least alert you all to is that the meeting might be a little bit repetitive and not necessary, because the city does have a citywide closure from the 23rd to the 3rd of January. So for close to 2 weeks. So even if we did hold a meeting, there's not going to be terribly much staff time between now and then. And then you're going to run into conflict with the same thing, is that if we have a meeting at the end of January, even if all commissioners are present, there's not going to be terribly much time before the February meeting. So you're going to kind of run into the same thing. A lot of times what the commissions do, so for example, the commissions that I'm director of is Planning Commission, as well as Design Review and Historic. We generally do a summer break that mirrors what the city council does in order to help kind of alleviate some of the lag of like commission kind of deliverables. And I do really honestly think you're going to run into that either at the first meeting in January, or you're then going to, if you meet late in January, you're going to run into that in February. It might behoove the commission to just take that into consideration and cancel the January meeting altogether and allow staff to actually be able to have deliverables to report out to the commission in February. Just because of the actual business days between now and that February meeting. That's my recommendation just to consider as a commission tonight.
And I do agree, Chair Delanu and Commissioners, Director Fairman here. I do agree with Director Zorns after looking at the dates, just before the meeting here, a closer look on that to have significant progress and allow staff time to work, because the city closure and then coming back. So that's my recommendation as well.
All right, thank you. Well, let's decide. Can we decide at the end of the meeting whether we want to keep the January 9 meeting based on the discussions we have today on the work plan and some potential items that could come up at the next meeting?
The decision, Chair Delanu, the decision has to be made at this time because that's the item under consideration for action by the commission.
Okay. All right, so any comments from the commissioners? What do you guys want to do? I mean, we can cancel the meeting altogether. I think there are potentially agenda items that would come up in January. One of them that was planned was having more discussions around the EV fair. That's one of the things. I'm not sure we're going to be able to make much more progress on the other items, but so I'm going to open up for discussion. If any of you have strong feelings about keeping the meeting on January 9, please voice your point. And if you don't have any strong feelings about it, we can always cancel.
No strong feelings for me.
Yeah, unless someone can raise a topic that we know we want to discuss at that time, it does seem like canceling is the way to go. But we can always find something to do.
Don, you wanted to say something, maybe?
No, I'm okay any way the commissioners want to go.
Laura and Xiaoping, do you have any opinion?
I'm okay, unless the EV fair planning we really need a January meeting to, move things. I think the target is in February and March, right? So I think it's between, staff and us. If people feel, we skip to January, it would be okay, then I have no problem with that.
I think the EV fair is for April 1st right now. So I guess we could always have the discussion in February and still have time to adjust as needed. I mean, Carl, can you,
Yeah, I mean, this is all the last agenda on for today, and that date is not likely to happen at this point. So
it's not going to be April 1st.
I think we would be fine considering we will have at least an introductory discussion tonight. I don't think a significant amount's going to happen by January 9th to need that meeting.
Okay, well, let's
With that,
I can, yes, Don.
with that being the case, if your sense is the EV fair is the most pressing one, and we just heard that the EV fair isn't going to have a whole lot by that time, I'm fine with canceling it.
Yeah, I mean, the only other ones would be the work that's ongoing with the model water ordinance, and then the tree preservation guidelines would be the other high ticket items, and then the REACH codes is always something that's in there. So, I guess if nothing is going to happen nothing much is going to happen between now and the beginning of January on the staff side. I think we're probably okay to review all this in early February, and it's going to be a busy meeting, but I think that's probably okay.
And we can still continue to have subcommittee work during
Yes.
that.
All right, so
Yes.
Can I propose then we cancel the January 9 meeting, and the next meeting will be in February. I don't know what the date is for the meeting in February. Do we have a date? Just to, I'm assuming it's at the beginning of February. It should be at the beginning of February. It's the first Monday of each month, right? The second Monday of each month.
Second Monday.
Yeah. Did we take a
So-
vote on that, on canceling the meeting?
Yeah, so Chair Delanu, if you're making a motion, can you?
Yes, I'll make a
state-
motion to cancel the meeting on January 9 then.
And if
Rashina,
we
you
could get a second?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll take a vote for the rest of the commissioners. Commissioner Texler,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Rees,
Yes.
and Commissioner Whedon.
Yes.
Okay, so the January 9th meeting will be canceled. And it will reconvene on February, the second Monday in February.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
Okay, so next agenda item is a presentation from joint venture on the Santa Clara County and the City of Los Altos Food Recovery Program. So do we have Chiara? Yes, she's with us.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So you have a presentation, right?
I do. Yep, I have a presentation for you. Is it okay if I get started?
Yes, we can go. Go ahead.
Great. I'll just share my screen here. Okay, great. How's that looking on your end?
Very good, thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, so again, thanks so much for having me tonight. My name's Kira Lowe. I'm the program manager of the Santa Clara County Food Recovery Program that's managed by joint venture Silicon Valley. This evening, I'm going to give you an overview of who the Food Recovery Program is and what we do, our work to date, including data from our first round of reporting under SB 1383 this year, and what we're working on heading into the new year. If my slide, okay, let's see. There we go. So the Santa Clara County Food Recovery Program manages the food recovery components of SB 1383 on behalf of all 16 jurisdictions in the county. This law, also known as California's Short-Lived Climate Pollutants Reduction Strategy, was signed in 2016 and aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, primarily methane, resulting from the decomposition of organic waste in our landfills. The law requires that by 2025, California recover 20% of edible food that's currently disposed, which means food that's currently being sent to landfill, to instead feed people. And as you can see, there are a few other goals under SB 1383 that other folks in the county and in our cities are working on, and you may have heard from them. We're just responsible for the food recovery components of the law. So who's regulated under the law? SB 1383 places businesses and organizations that are regulated into two different groups to give some businesses more time to prepare to recover foods that are harder to safely store and distribute. Tier 1 generators on the left typically have more produce, fresh grocery, and shelf-stable foods and are required to comply with the law starting January 1st of this year. Tier 2 organizations and businesses on the right have until 2024 to come into compliance. These entities typically have more prepared foods, which often require more careful handling in order to meet food safety requirements. You can see there, I'll just quickly read through. Tier 1s, we have supermarkets, grocery stores, food service providers, food distributors, and wholesale food vendors. Keeping in mind that you can see there's some small writing there that kind of explains that there are thresholds for many of the businesses, so we're only regulating the larger businesses in each category. And then in Tier 2s, we have restaurants, hotels, health facilities, large venues and events, state agencies, and local education agencies with food facilities on site. So the city of Los Altos has 7 Tier 1 and 34 Tier 2 entities, and you can get a sense there of how that compares to the county-wide numbers. The law also regulates food recovery organizations and services, the folks who are working hard to collect and redistribute surplus food to people in need. We have 54 food recovery organizations based in the county, and 54 who recover food specifically from businesses regulated under the law. And even though, as you can see, none of them are based out of Los Altos, many of them are working across the county to collect and redistribute food, including here in Los Altos. So the law requires each jurisdiction in California to establish a food recovery program in order to provide information and technical assistance and to connect regulated businesses and food recovery organizations within their communities. Each county in California is doing this a little differently. The jurisdictions in Santa Clara took a somewhat unique approach by creating a county-wide program that serves all jurisdictions in the county. This has the benefit of avoiding duplicative costs and resources for staffing, required capacity assessments and record keeping and reporting, as well as ensuring that businesses and organizations throughout the county are receiving the same messaging and are regulated in the same way. So in order to take this approach, the first piece on our end was to create a model ordinance, which each local jurisdiction then passed in their own local area, and that enabled us to create a unified program and approach. This slide details the activities of our program, including regular meetings with subcommittees and our steering committee. We also have a Bay Area group that meets to discuss how we're all implementing the law in our own separate counties and successes and challenges we're all facing as we're figuring this out. On the right is an overview of the program's major functions: capacity planning, which I'll talk about later on, providing education and outreach to all regulated entities, collecting and analyzing reporting, inspecting and monitoring compliance, and reporting information back to CalRecycle. So we manage all requirements for jurisdictions up until enforcement. And then if and when enforcement is necessary, we support jurisdictions in enforcing themselves. This is a screenshot of our website. The website content is aimed at regulated businesses and walks them through 8 steps to compliance with the law. You'll see those on the right there. In addition, we have a number of pages that are focused on safe food recovery and food waste prevention tips and strategies. You can see from the banner at the top of this page, we've also recently developed one-sheets that are specific to each industry group that's regulated under the law and include strategies to help them prevent food waste and safely recover food sort of based on their own individual business model. And these one-sheets also walk them through how to comply with the different record keeping and documentation requirements under the law. Okay, so then on to how it's going. This slide is an overview of the results of our first round of reporting this year. By August 1st of this year, all regulated entities, so businesses and nonprofits, were required to submit a report detailing the status of their food recovery efforts and the amount of food they recovered in the first 6 months of the year. We were really excited to have 87% of businesses and 100% of nonprofits submit reports in this first cycle. It was a really positive bit of feedback on our outreach efforts today. The food recovery organizations reported over 9.7 million pounds recovered in just the first 6 months of this year. This number represents efforts in both San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, since Second Harvest Food Bank is based out of Santa Clara but does work in both counties. And that's why that number is so much higher than the roughly 5 million pounds that businesses reported recovering and donating within the county. On the right, you'll see prevention measures that businesses reported that they were using to prevent food waste. This graph's a little outdated. We've received more reports to date, but it gives you a sense of the strategies that are most commonly employed. And we were really happy to see that 80% of those who submitted reports reported that they were using at least one of these waste prevention measures. And then finally, on this slide, you'll see that we've completed 51 inspections so far in the county, which amounts to 10% of Tier 1 businesses inspected in each jurisdiction. So earlier this year, we completed a food recovery capacity assessment, which was required for each county under the law. Susan Miller-Davis, our Associate Director, led the development of this report. She used surveys of businesses and recovery organizations throughout the county, collected and analyzed many different data sets and used multiple methodologies. And thankfully, she found, and the report demonstrates, that we have ample capacity in the county to recover the surplus food covered under the law. So then you'll see on the right, the Making the Most document goes a step further than that. The capacity report required by the state only covers food that would have been landfilled. That's what they are talking about in their food currently disposed. And so this report details the opportunity to, quote unquote, make the most of all the surplus food in the county. And it's a 3-year countywide work plan, including recommendations for expanding food recovery and surplus prevention or food waste prevention efforts, among other things. And we're currently working on scoping out these recommendations with specific proposals, budgets, and funding sources. So in addition to that, we're already working on our next round of outreach and education, which we're planning to start in the new year. And this will include more tailored outreach to the various Tier 2 groups before they come online or have to come into compliance in 2024. We're waiting to hear back on funding proposals that would allow us to conduct webinars and in-person sessions on food waste prevention and safe food recovery best practices. Again, specifically focusing on Tier 2 groups at the moment. and to also create a small grants program to fund equipment purchases such as fridges and freezers for food recovery organizations throughout the county. We're also then working on the creation of long-term program documents, including methods and draft budgets to inform the long-term management of the program. And the county has hired an independent consultant to identify and implement a long-term legal structure and funding mechanism for the program. So that's about it. Just to lastly toot our collective collaborative horn a little bit. We are up on the state website as a successful example of local education and outreach efforts. So you can see us on the state site on the left there. And that's my contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chiara. Before we take questions for the commission, I wanted to ask if there was any comments from the public on this particular presentation. Gary, go ahead.
Thank you, Chiara. That was fascinating. I think people are really interested in what happens to what goes into the garbage around here. I know we're not, the general public is not a tier 1 or a tier 2 business, but whenever Greentown has a presentation on plastic waste, we get a good turnout. So people are curious, and I think as part of the outreach that would help the tier 1, tier 2 business community would be getting the public involved. I know somehow let them know what you were doing. It's fascinating. And I think then they would, that the goodwill that would be generated from that would encourage, I don't know, you didn't get into what is going to be done to reduce material into landfill, but I'm sure that will touch people. And so you want to get people on board as quickly as possible. That's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate that. We are we're finally getting around to that. Actually, we're working at the moment on getting we'll have a few dashboards up on the county's Office of Sustainability. They have different dashboards under there. I think it's their sustainability work plan. And so we'll have a few dashboards that we're going to promote, and we're also hoping to get to some social media outreach collectively with the county to try and get this out to the general public. But I appreciate that.
Well, when that time comes, just to interrupt again, I would like to get that message out to the Greentown followers, and there are some other groups that we can get the message out to. So I think people would really enjoy hearing about it.
Awesome. Great. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Chiara, for the presentation again. Do we have any more comments from the public on this item?
May I know, how do you monitor the food safety?
How do we monitor the food safety? Yeah, so so that's that falls to the food recovery organizations themselves. So we do a lot of education around food safety, but in general, our role is playing sort of the implementing the law and connecting businesses with food recovery organizations. A lot of food recovery these days is very professional. It's, you know, folks have been doing it. Second Harvest is one example, but there are many out there who've been doing it for a long time. And they are very focused on food safety. It's a very important piece of this. So it really is, at the end of the day, up to each organization individually to monitor food safety, and it's a really important part of their operation. And the role that we want to play is to just really be an educator and make sure the information that they have, for instance, the Silicon Valley Food Recovery Council that Joint Venture chairs, came up collectively with sort of food safety best practices for food donation. That's on our website, and that each organization kind of distributes themselves. And so we push that out when we're doing our education efforts for to the various entities.
I'd like the commissioners to hold their questions for a few minutes because we have one more comment from the public. Sybil, go ahead.
I hope you can hear me. I'm joining the meeting by my phone. I want to thank Clara for her presentation. I have a question. Are I don't know what tier 2 is. Maybe that's restaurants. Are you planning to work with high schools eventually?
Yeah, so tier 2 does include schools as well. Any schools that have food facilities or distribute food, we're getting a little more guidance on that at the moment, are regulated. And so a big piece of our education starting next year is to reach out to schools and really help them figure out the best way to create programs that will come into compliance with the law.
So currently at Los Altos High School, the head of the pizza cart program delivers any uneaten pizza that she can to the Day Workers Center in on Escuela in Mountain View, and they've worked out a connection for that. But we have a new head of cafeteria food services at the district level, and I'd love to connect him with you. So I'll do that through email.
Yep, great. And I mean, our website is I don't have the link here. I can put it in the chat, but our website does have some information on it. It is sort of aimed at businesses or organizations at the schools themselves. So there are resources there, as well as all of our contact information.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. So if we don't have any more comments from the public, we can open the floor for commissioners to ask questions and for discussion. Don, go ahead.
The question that I had is looking at the numbers of tier 1 and tier 2 in Los Altos and looking at the slide with the brief definition in it. I can sort of count the 7 grocery stores or whatever in Los Altos, but I was wondering what the makeup of the 34 is, because by 250 seat restaurants and things like that, I'm not sure we have many of those. And so I was just wondering what type of facilities are included in that 34.
That is a great question, and one that I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was also gonna say you may not know the answer to that.
Yeah,
it's pretty specific.
It is, and it's a great question, and you're making me realize I should have looked at that before coming today, but I can pull it up actually while I can't say anything about who, I can't identify any businesses, but that question I can give you more information on. If you give me a second, or if anyone else has another question while I look at this.
Chiara, I just wanted to mention, I think the definition of tier 2 has to do with the square footage of the businesses, right? So for tier 1 is any business, any food facility that is 10,000 square feet or greater. And then for tier 2 is 5,000 square feet or greater, correct? That's how they're grouped.
It depends on the type. So for instance, in tier 1, grocery stores, we're only regulating grocery stores over 10,000 square feet, supermarkets with over 2 million in revenue. For tier 2s, the restaurants are over 5,000 square feet or 250 seats. So it depends on each. It's not tier 1s or this or tier 2s or this. It's down to each industry group, basically has their own definition.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep. So I will say it's a mix of health facilities, hotels, large venues, education agencies, and restaurants.
So when you're saying, so you need to reduce the food going to landfill by 20% by 2025, that's compared to 2014, right?
That's a good question. That's also a state goal. So that's not each individual county doesn't need to do that. That's at the state level. We need to reduce that by 20%. And I don't remember off the top of my head what the baseline year is for that.
Okay. Because I'm assuming you have, so it's the tonnage, right? It's the weight of the food being sent to landfill that is being reduced by 20%.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have a reference here where you know exactly how much food was sent to the landfill by these tier 1 and tier 2 facilities?
Yeah, they do. They use waste characterization studies, and we did similarly for our capacity assessment using waste characterization studies to understand sort of what is, and you know, rough estimates, but what is going to the landfill at the moment. And so that's what the capacity assessment involved, identifying how much was going to the landfill, how much would then be under this law required to be recovered, and whether or not each jurisdiction has the capacity to recover that amount of food in tons.
So the 20% is the same for every jurisdiction, but the reference year is not the same.
20% is the statewide goal.
The state. So it might be different. What is the percentage reduction for Santa Clara County, for example?
So we're looking at, for the capacity assessment, the maximum amount of edible food disposed. So looking at all the food that's going to the landfill and reducing, sort of assuming that level, having the capacity to recover all of that.
All of it?
Yeah.
So it's not 20%, it's pretty much 100%. That's what you're saying?
I will have to confirm. I'll have to look back. That's a good question. I think I'm
That
getting
seems a lot. Just
state level. Yeah, I know our capacity assessment says that under SB 1383, we need to recover in Santa Clara 3,165.
Okay, and then you said it was like the baseline was 6,000 to 7,000. I saw that on one of the slides, I think, right?
Yeah, so currently, so our current capacity in the county, we estimated between basically 9,000 and a little over 11,000 tons to recover food. And edible food disposed in the landfill is currently 3,255 tons. So we're well above capacity, but one of the reasons for that is we have a really good organics recycling. We have good organics recycling in the county. And so a lot of food is not going to the landfill, it's going to compost, to organics recycling. And so that was kind of the impetus for the Making the Most report that we did, because we felt that wasn't really capturing the opportunity. You know, according to that measurement, we're already meeting the state requirement to recover that amount of food.
Okay. It's because of the composting mostly.
Exactly. Yeah.
And are you measuring on a yearly? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm not sure if that quite answered your question.
No, I mean, it clarifies the point, because I wasn't sure exactly how you were measuring the 20% and whether was for the state, for each jurisdiction, but you clarified that it's different for Santa Clara. We're already meeting that goal. That's what you're saying. And then everything we're doing is in addition to that, really.
Exactly.
Right. And then, are you measuring that on a yearly basis, or are you going to just measure in 2025, or how do you do that?
2024. So at the moment, it's sort of every 2-year capacity assessment, every 2 years that then sort of reassess how things are going and what both in terms of capacity and what's being recovered. And then, of course, we look at that as well, and we look at that opportunity. And one thing we're trying to do is really promote food waste prevention measures. So hopefully that number is also going to come down in terms of the opportunity to recover food. The amount of recoverable food will hopefully decrease as businesses hopefully adopt more food waste prevention strategies.
Thank you. Laura, you had a question.
Speaking of food waste prevention, thank you, Sarah, for your presentation. I just wanted to see if you were aware of the Climate Friendly Kitchens program that Actera is running, which is focused on food waste prevention. And they do consultation with restaurants. You look like you know about it.
I'm glad you brought it up. I actually met with, and I'm totally blanking on his name, but the man who, sorry?
Irvin?
Might have been Irvin.
Anyway, yes.
The person sort of who's running the consultations I met with to sort of make sure that we were on the same page and to give him resources to provide to the businesses he's working with about how to safely recover any surplus food that they do have. So yeah, yeah, it seems like a great program. They're doing some really exciting stuff.
Got two questions. One
Go ahead,
related
Cal.
to the discussion you had with Dawn. What is the reason for anonymity for tier 1 and tier 2 entities? Because just on the surface, it would seem beneficial for people to be aware of who's being regulated so they could offer a hand.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we're actually, because we're contracted by the county to run this on behalf of the county, that's one of the pieces that we're working on in terms of sort of the long-term legal structure and funding for the program. So a piece of that we're trying to get legal advice on is what we as an organization contracted by the county are allowed to share. And so one of the reasons for not sharing that is sort of out of an abundance of caution at the moment, so that we can make sure that we're not doing anything out of line. So we're hoping to get a little more clarity on that. A lot of counties are keeping that information sort of, they're not sharing that, some are. So we're just trying to get, it's a good question. But at the moment we're just kind of acting out of caution.
Okay, well, cool to know you're thinking about it. And then the other question I had was, considering there's 0 food recovery organizations in Los Altos, I'm curious about what is the impact of having to go to ones outside of the city, and I guess what's the potential differences you think could be realized if there was one within the city limits?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think that kind of gets at one of the reasons that we are really excited about this county-wide program, because so much of this in general is not done according to jurisdiction lines. And so a lot of these organizations, there are a lot of, when we put together the numbers for each jurisdiction, there are a lot of jurisdictions, the majority have no food recovery organizations, but are totally covered by these organizations that are headquartered often in San Jose, but absolutely serving all of the counties. All of the cities, all of the jurisdictions. So I don't think it actually makes that much of a difference whether or not they're headquartered here or there. I think looking at it sort of at the county-wide scale, we have a really robust food recovery ecosystem. And so I think that more than covers kind of everyone working in the county at the moment.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Rashina.
So, question, I'm not sure if, again, this is an area that you would have the exact answer for, but do you have a sense of how much that, say, 20% increase in diversion, or whatever translates to in terms of greenhouse gas impact for the county?
That's a good question. I know, so I don't know off the top of my head. We are, as I was saying to Gary, we're creating dashboards to kind of translate our work for everyone to be able to see what we're doing. And one of the pieces of that is translating the food recovered into emissions saved. And so that will be up there sort of by our numbers annually, and we'll be sharing, once they go up, we'll share that with your staff contacts. And I'm sure that they'd be happy to share that with you, but I don't know off the top of my head what that amounts to.
No worries, thank you.
Yeah.
So you may not be able to answer that question, but I was wondering if do you have any information with regards to food waste, the percentage of food waste, when you look at the total food waste wasted and sent to either the landfill or composting or whatever, but mostly the landfill, how much is coming from businesses, the tier 1 and tier 2 you've mentioned, and how much is coming from local people, like individual like you and I and all of us? Do you have any sense of that?
Only not according to the capacity assessment that we did really focuses on businesses. It focuses on those regulated under the law. In general, ReFed, the sort of nationwide organization that's leading the charge in research on food waste, does sort of put consumer food waste as the largest category nationwide, largest contributor to food waste. And I don't remember off the top of my head how that compares to these businesses, but I know that that is a huge piece of food waste that's not addressed under this law.
So that's more than businesses in general, right? That you're saying it might be a lot more, it might be just a little bit more.
Yep. In general, I know it is the largest category. When you look at sort of where food is wasted along the supply chain, household food waste is kind of the biggest issue area. It's also one of the most difficult to address because it's behavior change, it's cultural. There's a lot of educational campaigns out there to work on reducing household food waste. But it is a really difficult one to tackle.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if what you're doing in terms of education and outreach could be potentially applied to, households and individuals and everything, to try to educate and give them the tools to be able to change the behavior. Composting would be an easier probably thing to do for consumers, but I think food recovery programs and stuff like that might be something that people would be interested in doing. I just don't know how we can take what you're doing in some ways and kind of retool it for consumers.
Yeah, and I would actually suggest, sorry, there's sometimes a strange echo. I would actually suggest there are people, I forget who mentioned Actera. There are groups who are actually working specifically on consumer education campaigns or individual sort of household level education campaigns. And like across the country, there's a lot of effort being put into that. So it's not what we do, but there are groups out there doing it. A lot of groups in the Bay Area. And so I think maybe promoting their efforts more is better than working on sort of reworking what we are doing. Is making sure that we're collaborating and building this movement together.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say also too, with household food waste, by the time I think it becomes the food waste that's already soiled, and it would be hard to make it, edible food recovery. So that touches upon what Kara said about behavioral change and food planning programs, and maybe we can get more information on those organizations you just mentioned to, when we reach that point, to start doing some outreach.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think, Gary, thank you. Just put in the chat the breakdown of waste at different levels: 43% homes, 40% stores, 16% farms, 2% manufacturing. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, I think that's something we're going to have to consider at some point, in terms of education with regards to increasing our diversion rate, which is about at 71% right now. And obviously we want to be much higher than that by 2030 and by 2035 based on our climate action adaptation plan. So anyway, that's another topic, but one that's linked to what you're doing, but something we should start considering as a commission, and how we go about that, because it's not an easy one for sure.
And I do believe, and this is where my understanding, I'm fairly new in this role, so I'm not super familiar with the other aspects of the law at the moment, but I do believe that the sort of organics recycling piece of SB 1383 does apply to consumers, to households, sorry. So that piece is kind of is a piece of this legislation.
Hmm. Do we have any more questions from the commissioners? All right. Thank you very much, Chiara. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for your time. That's great.
So much.
All right. Moving on. Next item on the agenda is the CPUC net energy metering solar tariff, a challenge to increase adoption of solar panels and battery storage. And I believe that's Tanya. Tanya, you're going to give us an update and some information on that.
Yes, thank you. So just to give a background on this, we were notified that that the CPUC released a press release on this, and so we wanted to notify the Environmental Commission as well as the public that this is something that's happening. And so just a brief background: on November 10th, the CPUC released a proposed update to net energy metering, the net energy metering tariff. And so they are proposing something called the net billing tariff, and it will feature changes to the current structure of the net energy metering tariff, also known as NEM 2.0. And so we included the press release, the fact sheet, and the FAQ in the agenda packet. So we encourage everyone to read the new proposal. And if you all want to learn more, please visit the CPUC website. I believe tomorrow or the 15th is when the CPUC will be voting on this. And we also just wanted to let you know that members of the public can comment on the proposal. And we uploaded the link that you can do that in the agenda packet.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Yeah, I was trying actually this week to look it up, but I think one of the challenges is, first of all, it says it's not going to affect current solar panel owners and battery storage owners, but and it's only for new ones, and I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work. I'm guessing they're going to change it for everybody, but I don't know if anyone on the commission has more information. Laura, do you have more information on this?
A little bit. Sorry about that. I don't know what that was. You know, I read a lot on the first round proposal. I haven't dove too deeply yet into this proposal. But yes, basically, if you're an existing solar customer, you continue to get the market rate reimbursement for your net production. And with the current proposal, my understanding is you get whatever it would cost the energy provider to buy that energy on the open market. So that's going to be less. So it's a very complex set of incentives, and from my little bit of reading, it looks like a fairly substantial reduction in what new solar customers will be able to expect in terms of the rates that they're going to get for their excess energy. So the solar market is definitely concerned that that's going to reduce incentives for people to put solar, but it does it does have more incentive for energy storage, and they're trying to shift the incentive to when you know customers who can provide power during those early evening hours. So anyway, it's a very complex set of interactions. And it's you can read the press release that the CPUC is putting out and then go read what you read from the solar industry, and they have very different views on what this proposal is going to what the end product of this will be. But it's a fairly short timeline for any of us to digest this complex information and provide any sort of comment. So I think at this point, we're just going to be learning once they adopt it what it's going to mean, and it will have implications obviously for our residents as they put new solar on their homes, and whether that will be encouraged to have energy storage and all those things. So maybe at some point we want to have an expert come and tell us all the ins and outs of it once they adopt it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've had solar panels for quite a while now, and every time they make a change, obviously, you lose money as a customer. It's like it's always to the benefit of PG&E and the providers, and not, it doesn't. It seems like it's a one-way kind of discussion as a customer, as a owner of solar panels, and you don't. Every time they make a change, it's not for your benefit, unfortunately, which is very disappointing.
There are complex considerations. One of the things that they're trying to balance out here is that non-solar customers have been carrying more of a burden of, maintaining the overall grid, because solar customers who can afford to be generating, and they have been getting a fairly a good price for that excess energy, even though that maybe they're getting paid more than it's actually worth on the open market. So those of us who have the means to have solar panels have actually been benefiting maybe more than non-solar customers. So they're trying to balance out the equity of that. So complex considerations.
And do you have any information about the $900 million of subsidies that are coming from the state? I'm wondering if that's part of the Inflation Reduction Act, or that's something completely different that's purely state funded.
Yeah, I can't say what that's exactly from.
Okay, Gary, you seem to have more information, perhaps.
Well, I don't know. I might be out of order since you started a discussion before public comment. But when I put my system in, I sized it so that I didn't generate any excess. And so for maybe in the future, people just won't do that. But I don't really know. Is it going to reduce the amount that I get my payback for the solar energy that I do produce, so that I will have less benefit?
Not for you, because you're an existing customer.
Well, but I mean, for new customers, are they going to have, even if they're not producing excess, will they have less benefit?
Well, I think I can tell you from experience that when they first changed the calculation for the net metering back then, like 10, 15 years ago, whatever, it was supposed to be only for new people installing solar panels. And then the people that had already solar panels, 3 years later, they had to basically join the same rate. They were not accepting the previous rate, which is the grandfathered rate for the earliest adopters. So I think right now they may be saying, well, it won't affect you if you currently have solar panels, but my guess in 2 or 3 years down the road, it's going to affect us anyway. I mean, if that's been the trend for 15, 20 years now.
So I guess the question to staff, Tanya, do you have an answer on that?
At this moment, I don't. But I was wondering, I want to just be cognizant of the Brown Act and that this is not a discussion item, but would it be helpful to make this a discussion item for, in the future?
I think that would be useful to have someone, as I think Laura suggested, to have someone come and present to the commission what the CPUC recommendation is, or what was adopted by the CPUC and how it's going to affect new solar panel customers and the previous ones, the ones that already have the solar panels and the battery storage. Would be interesting to have that presentation and that kind of discussion, because I think right now we're not sure exactly what's going to happen.
Okay, so yeah, I recommend maybe in the potential future agenda items, we can discuss that more and take a vote and see if that's something we want on the next meeting.
Don, did you want to add something? I see that you unmuted yourself.
No, I think the summary that Laura put out is that, I guess the only point that I wanted to make, this is the second round. As you know, the CPUC put forward something that really drew a lot of fire from solar providers and others. And this is the second attempt at getting this CPUC legislation or rate schedule through. And I don't know enough about how it's changed, but there's a battle going between the solar industry, industries that provide power to the main power suppliers like PG&E and others, as well as the rate schedule and equity within the rate schedule that Laura referred to. So it's a whole lot of things going on.
Yes. Can we may I make a suggestion, and we can take a vote on this, but I certainly would be, I think it would be useful to have someone neutral come and make a presentation to the commission about this new CPUC guidelines, rules, or that are in discussions right now, maybe adopted soon. Would the other commissioners be in favor of this?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion then, since we're going to formalize it, to try to have someone neutral come and present information regarding this new net energy metering rules that are being discussed right now by the CPUC.
I second that.
Thank you.
I think it's a good future item, Bruno, and it so I agree. It may have to wait until the CPUC makes its ruling and the dust settles a little bit.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think there is very little we can do to influence what the CPUC is going to be doing at this time. But so I don't know if we need to take a formal vote, Tanya. We can take a formal vote if you want.
Yeah, we can take a vote, and if you do want it on a future agenda item, though, for next meeting, we would have to take that vote at a later time in the agenda. So are we taking a vote on just having it in the future at some point? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the idea.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and take a vote. So Bruno, Chair Delano, you made the motion, and Commissioner Whedon seconded. So
Commissioner Liu seconded it.
Oh, Commissioner Liu seconded it. So Commissioner Texler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Rees?
Yes.
Commissioner Humayun?
Yes.
And Commissioner Whedon?
Yes.
All right, we'll let the record show that this will be a future topic. Thank you.
And then we can decide when it makes sense, and we can talk about that offline, I guess. We'll see what happens with the CPUC rules and guidelines. All right, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the Environmental Commission work plan. We have 3 work plan items that will be discussed separately, and then we can go through the other items on the work plan once we've done those. So we'll start with an update on the REACH codes.
Thank you. So for the reach codes, on November 29th, at the city council meeting, the city council adopted the updated California Building Standards Code, Title 24, with local amendments. And again, these will continue to be in effect until we adopt the recommended reach codes, or until 3 years. So just to provide you a status update on, where we're at, staff is continuing to do research on peer and neighboring jurisdictions, really waiting for them to adopt their codes and do case studies. And that was really something the council wanted us to do. So we'll continue doing that. And the local cost analysis is still in motion. We anticipate that to be completed by the beginning of next year. And that also as well is something city council would like to see to understand how those measures will affect the residents and the in the city, and to determine the cost impacts on those recommended measures. And then, as you all know, once the reach codes are presented to city council and they formally adopt then it could be submitted to the CEC, which has about a 60-day time span.
So in terms of timelines, so first question is about the cost assessment right now is based on what came out of the subcommittee, I'm guessing, in terms of new reach codes.
Correct.
And then when do you think that will be completed, and your assessment of what other jurisdictions are doing? When do you think that's going to be completed, so that we can either finalize what we had, or I'm trying to figure out exactly what we're looking at, because I understand we still have the 60 days after adoption by the council. So I'm trying to look at when we could potentially have that effective in Los Altos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with the local cost analysis, there's a lot of intricacies for the contractors to look at. So we're hoping that, we're anticipating the beginning of next year. I don't have a firm month, but we're working on getting that as soon as possible. So we've been meeting with the building division and making sure that that's completed, and we're considering all the elements of what it takes to do a local cost analysis. And as for your second question about the
other jurisdictions,
other jurisdictions, it's really contingent on how soon they develop their ordinances and put information out, and we anticipate that also early next year. And there's going to be some time to see how that's faring in their jurisdictions. So we don't want to be too hasty on these case studies. We want to make sure that enough information is out there for us to really make informed decisions. So we're working on that continuously and building our data, but we're hoping early next year as well.
Laura, you had a question.
I just wanted a clarification on that in terms of the benchmarking with surrounding jurisdictions. The council wasn't asking for a benchmark of, once the other jurisdictions implement their reach code, like that they actually have it, have data behind the implementation and how that's going, just what they have adopted, right? or even what they're considering. Like, were they wanting to have all the jurisdiction have an adopted reach code to compare to? Because that's going to put us way behind the ball.
That's a good question. That's how I understood that. But I can definitely double check on that item. Thank you.
Go ahead, Don.
A couple of questions for Tanya. One is the resolution that was adopted, that was for adoption of the new building codes, and my understanding, it also include an extension of our current reach codes. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the questions that I have regarding that is, does that require a second reading, or is that going through now?
That
As of
has
now?
been completed as of November 29th.
Okay, then I have a suggestion is our current reach code, or the adoption of the current things, do somewhat go beyond the current or the new building code. And so the city may be able to apply for and receive the $10,000 grant now, rather than waiting for advancement of our second round of reach codes in the beginning part of next year. Because we are reaching beyond the standard, and therefore, and Silicon Valley has an incentive for all members, organizations that do that for a $10,000 grant. That was one comment that I had, and the following comments that I have is I just recommend that, Tanya, you keep a broad mind on this issue, because as you get into this and get prepared to bring forward some of the recommendations that the Environmental Commission made for the subsequent reach codes, there may be developments such that you don't have to do all of the things, or at least reevaluate whether or not you need the cost effectiveness study, and based on the responses that other cities have gotten with their reach codes, and whether or not we still have to advance all the issues that the council recommended doing. In other words, we may be able to save some labor of yours.
Okay.
I have
Thank
a
you.
comment on the first, a response on the first comment that Commissioner Whedon mentioned about the grant disbursement. So on December 1st, our city manager prepared a memo to SBCE, Zoe Elizabeth Zoe, letting her know that we adopted, the second reading of the reach codes. So requesting the grant, the 10,000 grant disbursement. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Fairman.
Thank you. Any other questions about the reach codes? I mean, I think I'm just a little bit worried that the timelines are really slipping away from us. And I just don't want something to be adopted sometime at the end of 2003 to be effective in early 2024. And it's important because every year every year it's probably 100 homes that would be added to the current pool of new homes being fully electrified that we will be missing. So it's something important from a GHG emissions reduction standpoint. So I realize there's a lot of work that has to take place from you guys to be able to bring that back to the council. But I think it's really something that is a high priority for us. And so the other question I had, so you mentioned the cost analysis would be, you're not even sure it's going to be in January, right? Completed in January, you're saying hopefully at the beginning of next year. But...
That's the plan. That's the goal. Yeah.
Okay. So once the cost analysis is done and you've completed the benchmarking, which you should be able to do right now, because I believe this, cities should have adopted their ordinance, their REACH code ordinance, to be effective the 1st of January, right? So that should be available right now. So we should in theory should be able to have everything done sometime in January, right?
With the holidays, I'm not sure, what that's gonna look like.
Yeah, excuse me, Director Fairman here. So when City Council asked that question at the last City Council meeting, city staff responded, and we said that in the first quarter of next year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. So hopefully we can do that reasonably soon at the beginning of next year. And I'm assuming that you would go back to the subcommittee to have that discussion with them before you finalize the REACH code ordinance. Or we at least not finalize it, but draft the REACH code ordinance.
That's a good question that we have to take up with the Director of Development Services.
I think she's on the line.
The Director of Development Services,
Nick
Director Nick
Zorns?
Zorns, yeah.
Okay.
And we can follow up on that.
Yeah, could you please make sure that I just want to make sure that we all understand the process. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
To get clarification around that. So
thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the next key item on the agenda from the work plan, it's the tree protection ordinance.
Yes. So just a status update on that. We've continued to meet internally with Development Services Department on various elements of the tree protection ordinance. And, the planning department and the permit department or division, sorry, they work on getting these permits approved and the data. So we've touched base with them just to learn a little more. And we've also are going to meet with the subcommittee to begin updating the city's street tree planting list. And on December 9th, we received 3 proposals from certified arborists, and we'll be meeting this week to have like a kickoff meeting to discuss and review their proposals. And we plan to, update the subcommittee once the certified arborist, we pick a certified arborist and they have time to do their work, and then we can update various policy elements that we brought to the subcommittee previously, and then we'll bring those updated recommendations again back to the subcommittee by early next year.
All right, thank you, Tanya. Do we have Rashina, you wanted to add something maybe, or you had questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you. We're going to be meeting later this week, hopefully, so we'll have a chance to get more details.
All right, good. Any other questions about the process? I just wanted to ask a question actually, because when you mentioned the tree planting list, what did you mean by that?
So the city has a street tree planting list that recommends what should be planted if and in the event a tree was removed, and it needs to be updated. So Carl has done some work, and the subcommittee has done some work on identifying what should be updated from that street tree planting list, and so we're going to continue working on that. And
that's independent from the discussion with the arborist that will take place when you've selected one, right? Or is that something that is going to also be advising us on?
That's undetermined at this time, but the subcommittee and city staff will be seeing what we can do at the current moment in the meantime.
Actually, if I take back my earlier comment about no questions, I have a question on what the arborists that the city is speaking to are going to be tasked to be doing.
So we have asked them to identify a list of questions. We sent them a list of questions, which we have shared with the subcommittee, and their scope of work will revolve around those list of questions.
Are we planning, our city already has the budget and planning to hire a resident arborist for the city?
Correct. We have a budget to hire the certified arborist.
Time.
Wait, can I clarify what I just heard? Tanya, you're talking about hiring an arborist for this specific job of looking at the tree preservation ordinance, right?
Correct.
Okay,
To help us with the recommendations that we put forth to
Yeah,
the subcommittee.
But we don't have the budget right now to bring on a full-time arborist for the city.
Not at this time.
Right.
This is, we're
Yeah.
hiring a certified arborist to help with the task of reviewing our recommendations and providing further input on some of the technical and policy elements of the tree protection ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Just a question. When do you think, I mean, it might be just a guess at this time, but when do you think we can have something to present to this commission for discussion, a draft ordinance? That's what I'm talking about, really.
That's a good question. A draft ordinance, well, we want to recommend our updated recommendations to the subcommittee by early next year. So potentially an updated ordinance, the certified arborist would take, at least a month or so to complete their work. And then when we have time when we need to take time to update our recommendations, and so maybe Q2.
Okay, no, I'm just
not sure at this
giving you,
time.
it's just to get an idea. That's fine. I think we'll obviously we'll adjust as you guys make progress.
Yeah, so the steps would be to review the certified arborist proposals, just pick one, discuss the timeline with them, and they're going to give us their, how long they need to complete the scope of work. Then they'll give us the recommendations, and we'll update our recommendations, present that to the subcommittee, and then I'm not sure how long that would take to, if there's any more information from the subcommittee after that. And then I believe we would present to the Environmental Commission our findings and begin updating the ordinance.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, Tanya. So I guess, we can, obviously you need to figure it out first. You need to, do the work you have to do, and then after we'll see where we are. It's a lot of work, I realize. So that's great. That's moving forward. Any other questions, comments from the commission? All right. So the next item on the agenda is the water conservation ordinance.
Yes. So as you all probably know, the Santa Clara County Water Efficient New Development Task Force started on this in 2015, and then Valley Water, on behalf of the task force, procured technical assistance to really take that their measures to the next level. And that's, you know, where Mwendo came about. And so bring us to date, no one in Santa Clara County has adopted Mwendo at the moment, but we met with staff met with subcommittee in November and Valley Water and their contractor Green Evolution to get up to speed and see, you know, what has been going on in the meantime. And we've also met with our planning department to review the 17 measures that are included in Mwendo. And we also plan to meet with the building department. And from our meeting with Valley Water and Green Evolution, we learned that they're updating the model ordinance, which is a crucial step for us to, you know, further our work. And so we checked in with them and they still don't have a date on when that is going to be updated, and they'll let us know as soon as it is. And then we will, you know, regroup and look at those measures and see what's changed and discuss any critical changes internally. And then we'll continue to meet with the subcommittee. We're currently trying to figure out a time to meet together this month.
So just a quick question. So so we kind of on hold on that until we get an updated Mwendo, is that correct?
Yeah. So we're in the meantime, like I said, we're meeting with various departments, but it would be best to get that updated model ordinance.
Okay.
And we're also trying to take the measures in, you know, Mwendo and see how they work with our MWILO ordinance that's currently in the city, as well as any other state laws that are coincide with what's in Mwendo. So there's a lot of research in doing that, and it may be covered when we get the model ordinance. So we're kind of just trying to figure out how much we should do on that front.
Right. Okay. Questions?
So I have a question on the MWILO, the landscape ordinance. And I'm wondering where it's possible to get details on that.
On the ordinance itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send the commission or the subcommittee the MWILO ordinance that we have, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think would be good. Just a subcommittee probably at this time, unless other commissioners would like to see it, but otherwise I think it makes sense to work with the subcommittee on these.
Sounds good, thank you.
Any other questions? These are big ticket items that require a lot of work. So, you know, I think, you know, I just would say in general, if we have to wait, it probably makes sense to wait for the final ordinance before work resumes, because otherwise it's just kind of doing work that may not be applicable to what's being done right now. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions on this agenda item, we can move on to the work plan itself and updates from the other subcommittees on the other items on the work plan. Climate action and adaptation subcommittee. Rashina and Carl, you want to give some updates to the commission about what we've been looking at?
Sure, how much of it would be an update from last session, so feel free to step in if I'm missing something, but I know we've continued discussions with Block Power. I've also continued exploring community climate solutions and how that could be implemented in Los Altos.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. I mean, yeah, we've had follow-up meetings with Block Power and still considering potential options with them. Also their own ability to do something meaningful for us in Los Altos. So I think that's really what we're looking at right now. And then with regards to community climate solutions, as Carl said, that's another thing we continue to evaluate and see whether it can be useful to Los Altos in general. And that's really what we've been working on. There might be, I should add also that, we need to probably one more step for Block Power as well as CCS is make sure that there aren't any other alternatives to these two options, which we will need to explore as well. All right. I think we've done, we have the EV fair as a separate agenda item, so we're not going to go through that. We have the separate agenda item also for the environmental webpage, so we're not going to go through that. Greening city operations. There is not a specific subcommittee looking at that, but it's kind of fell under the implementation subcommittee. And Tanya, do you want to you comfortable giving an update at this time, or on what we've been doing on the side, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, I think it's best to wait on that. Right now we're focusing on, those 5 priority items. And we can probably provide a better update at a later time.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Feel free to ask questions, as we go through the list, obviously. And then the single-use plastics. So we had the first meeting of the subcommittee again last month. That was done, Laura and myself, with Tanya, Casey, and I don't remember, Aida was at the meeting also. So to restart the discussion around the single-use plastic ordinance that we had worked on in 2020 that was put on hold, obviously, because of COVID. So, that's another thing that's is not listed as a top priority. That's something that we'll have to wait a little bit until we get resolution on some of the other actions, or until staff has a little bit more time to focus on that, since the next step, obviously, for what we've been doing would be to do some outreach with businesses, which really is the next step. But I think what I think I can say, and I want Don and Laura to please intervene, is that what we're looking at in terms of potential ordinance is what was last showed to the council or discussed by the council, which is to include not all foodware into the single-use plastic, into that ordinance. So it would be accessories as well as other foodware items, including plates, containers, and all that stuff. That's what we'd be looking at, not just the foodware accessories that is a mandate from the state. So it would be to go one step further and ban single-use plastics for everything that's being used to serve food or to deliver food or for takeouts. So did I made a fair representation of the discussions we had, Don, Laura?
Yes, that's what I recall as well. And to align with countywide efforts.
So I think we may not have an update for this environmental commission to take a look at until sometime next year. I think at this time we'll have to see how that fits into the into the other proposed items that staff and this commission is already working on. And that's it for the work plan, other than the two items that we have as a separate items on the agenda, as discussion items on the agenda, which is first to talk about the electrification information on the EC website. Do you want to give an update, Tanya, rather than me?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so we've been, working on this and going through various rounds of review to ensure the information provided on the website is accurate. And the main goal of this is to, be a resource for residents who are looking to electrify their homes. And this is a crucial part of the city's climate action plan to reduce methane gas. And just to provide a status update, we will continue to work with the Environmental Commission to finalize this document. And we plan for it to be posted by the end of this month. Once we, Casey and I continue reviewing the edits the commissioners have provided. And then Chair Delanu provided a letter to provide to the town crier as a form of publicity, and we're reviewing that and hoping to provide an update at the next meeting. And we just
I suggest maybe with regard to the letter, since the next meeting is not going to be until February, and that the page will be on the website, we hope at the end of this month. Maybe could you please circulate the draft letter to the commission members so they have a chance to take a look at it. It's a very short, less than 1 page letter, just to let people in Los Altos, or at least people reading the town crier, that this update to the website will be made and they will have access to more information regarding to electrification. And maybe if I can ask the commissioners to give it a quick turnaround time, maybe if you can send the draft later, maybe tomorrow, Tanya, would be fantastic. And then maybe have a review, the edits done by the commissioners by the end of Sunday or beginning of Monday morning next week would be good.
Yeah, so we sent it to the building division and just to give them a chance to review it. And then we can, I think it would be best to circle back after that. So I think we would need more time to get that back to the commissioners.
Okay, so I mean, I just want this, if the page is up and running at the end of this time, but I don't want the letter to be sent out 1 month or 2 months later. I just want it to be pretty much at the same time. So I just want to make sure I don't know, considering what's in the letter, I'm not sure there is much that the building division will add to it. So can we? I'm just trying to do things in parallel here, because then you guys are going to shut down as the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
And we pretty much have a little bit more than, like, say, 10 days before nothing happens, right? So until the beginning of next year. So that's why I was wondering if we could circulate the letter now, and they can provide their edits, and then we can combine that with the building division's edits if they have any. Would that work? Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I would like to, double check internally and then maybe get back to you as soon as possible tomorrow.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And that should be fine. But we also want to make sure that it gets posted in December, as well as, you know, you have time to be able to publicize it and not wait too long after it's posted. So we're definitely aiming for that as well.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, now let's make sure it's done in a timely fashion. That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
So I mean, I think if you can get feedback and then maybe you can send it tomorrow or the day after, whatever. And then I think, you know, one thing that we want to do is to publicize this as much as possible. So I think we had discussed with Tanya and Casey to have that included in the weekly updates from the city manager as well. I don't know when the next weekly updates will be after the page is posted, but I'm guessing early in January probably.
Yeah. It's a plan.
I don't know if you have yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and we can double check with the city manager on that and also get back to you.
That would be great. And I don't know if you have any suggestions in terms of how we can advertise this a little bit more.
Yeah,
I mean,
think-
everybody, I'm asking everybody, right? Go ahead, Tanya.
No, I'll give the floor to everyone.
Certainly a bare minimum thing that could be done is any page above this page could have some little ribbon of, you know, new updated information here or something to that effect. In terms of, yeah, easiest to execute.
Yeah, it could be done on the main Los Altos page. I know there is a space on the main Los Altos page. There is new information that's in kind of like little rectangular things. I don't know what to call it, but it would be useful to have that on the main page to alert people going into the main page that there is new information with regards to this. If that could be done as well, however form it takes, would be useful.
Bruno, I will elect you as chair. You could make a public comment and read some version of your letter at a city council meeting.
Yeah, sure. Be happy to do that. It's a good idea.
I'm wondering if, in addition, I'm wondering if we could use the city's social media, either Facebook or whatever else it may seem effective to, once we've all approved the letter and the content, to let people know that there is new information. And then another, I guess, contact with the citizens that we've used in the past for CAP, etc., is the local BAT teams. So I'm wondering if we could, connect with them and then have them connect to their neighborhoods to let people know that there's new information.
Yeah, I can certainly check with the communications division and see if that's a viable option to post on social media.
Yeah, I think it's a good case study also for us, especially if we do additional things for the city, like do something with Block Power, or do something with CCIS or whatever, something similar like that, where we engage the residents to to give them the tools to be active and to do something, to address climate change and the environment. So I think it's a good case study. Maybe that's also something that we can learn from for future things we do citywide. All right. there are any more comments or questions, we can move on to an update on the EV fair.
Okay. I think we have Sybil here as well. Awesome. I'm just going to share my screen here. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So our date for this was April 1st, but we learned today that Actera and their EV ambassadors have a conflict, and so this may take, it would affect that April 1st date. So Sybil has reached out to Actera and to see their schedule. We're waiting to hear back on that. Originally, we wanted to kind of discuss the event time with all of you. And we also reached out to Manny Hernandez from Parks and Recreation, the director of Parks and Recreation, to discuss other potential dates. And so that's something we can maybe discuss after I give you guys the details on the meeting. But as of right now, we do know that the location will be at the Los Altos Community Center. And the planned event components will be EV and e-bike display. And it will be in a meet and greet fashion where EV owners can display their vehicles as pictured here, and attendees can chat with EV owners, ask questions, explore different features of the cars, and as well as potentially having an e-bike display. There'll also be the city's charging stations at the community center, which will be right next to the location that we have proposed, and informational booths regarding EVs, and as well as informational displays. So we have some prospective informational booths such as Actera Go EV, like I just mentioned, Greentown Los Altos, Silicon Valley Electric Auto Association, SVCE, Breathe California, EVucation, and the Los Altos High School Parent Association Go Green Sustainability Committee. So we're really excited to have those, and Sybil can answer any questions on that, as she's leading this, and so some of the potential EV models that we're looking at are, as you can see, a Nissan Leaf, a Hyundai Ioniq, a Mini Cooper, and Rivian, and Tesla, and many more. So again, like I mentioned, we're currently working with Actera to host their Go EV ambassadors. They have this program where they have volunteers who will go to these events and display their vehicles, and they're very educated and experienced in speaking on their vehicles. And if the Environmental Commission knows anyone who would be interested in displaying their EV vehicle and talking about it and answering questions and interacting with guests, please let us know. And so as far as the site layout, this is where in the community center the event will take place. So we are proposing that there be potential configurations, but the EV display could be on this side and the booths could be on this side, or we can do a mix of both, something we wanted to discuss today. And here are the city EV chargers. And there's these restrooms that are available to the public who join the event. And these areas would be blocked off. So people can safely walk and enjoy the vehicles and the booths. And lastly, we have planning committee roles, just for your information. So we, the city of Los Altos, would be handling publicity and support from Greentown. Informational booth recruitment will be Sybil Kramer, and as well as Greentown. And volunteer recruitment, Sybil Kramer and Greentown as well. And we're all kind of working on EV recruitment, and adding on to what Actera could provide. So that's what we have so far, and we can jump into the discussion or any questions you may have.
Thank you, Tanya. Questions, comments about this? Go ahead, Laura.
I would just request that we have a commission table available so we can provide information on whether it be our electrification resources on our website. I don't know if we would be prepared to do anything on water conservation or have Cal Water, but maybe broaden a little bit what the tabling is what education the tabling is centered around, to maybe not strictly just be EVs, but have a couple of other topics that we cover as well, if that's possible, if there's space for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would second that. That's I was going to bring up the same thing, is that since this is a big effort on the part of the city to get, folks into that might be interested in or maybe leaning towards electrification, we use that opportunity to give out more information, including, maybe all the way up to the cap, and then the details of, Muelo or reach codes and electrification, other things. Not wanting to, take focus away from the EVs, but still having the opportunity for folks who may come in interested in electrification in general, or climate, environment, sustainability, etc., to have access to other points of information.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
So I had a couple of questions. First one is, are you planning to have dealers represented at this EV fair or not? Or it's purely EV owners displaying their vehicles?
At this time, it's looking like it's going to be purely EV owners.
May I speak to that? I don't know if you can hear me. It's Sybil.
We can hear you. We can hear you, Sybil. Go ahead.
So as far as I know, there are not any car dealerships in the city of Los Altos. And so it wouldn't be supporting local businesses. The closest are in North Palo Alto, in North Los Altos, the Volvo and Tesla showrooms in Palo Alto. And of course, to South Los Altos, Sunnyvale has many dealers. What would you feel that the dealers would contribute?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just asking a question. I think I think they may contribute cars that won't be represented there. That's wouldn't be one thing. They may provide a different kind of informations in terms of brochures and some stuff. Obviously, it would be specific to the vehicles they sell. So I think the problem is making it fair. We don't want to be necessarily selective with regards to the dealers we want to have there. So, maybe it doesn't work to have both. I'm just asking the question. I'm wondering if that makes sense and if it's something we should consider. That's all.
Usually, unless there's a ride and drive, dealers are not usually present at EV showcases or EV events such as this. And our feeling is that you get a more realistic picture of the experience of driving electric from someone who owns and has driven a car. Dealers often know what the car makers say the range should be, but when you actually talk to an owner can explain what the limitations might be on that large number of driving miles that the dealer claims that you would get. I'm not sure if I made myself clear about that.
No, I mean, I think it's fair. I mean, I think, we can all argue about the EPA numbers, but yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that point. The other question I had is whether there will be someone that can explain the new rules in terms of EV tax rebates that are coming out of the Inflation Reduction Act, because it's gonna change the landscape in terms of what kind of tax rebates you can get depending on the car you buy.
That's correct. And also there's income limits
Yes.
to obtaining. So Actera Go EV, Argon Erickson has put together some very good webinars and Zoom events on financial incentives. And her last one says what everybody else in the EV universe is saying, that it won't be clear until January, until after January, because cars need to be made in the US or assembled anyway in the US, and certain minerals have to be mined in the US. And so half the credit will be available if the car is assembled in the US, but the minerals aren't, I mean, there are all these combinations trying to make it as simple as possible, that if Actera Go EV has a table, they can either give the information out at the time of the event, if it's clear by the time of the event, or they can publicize a calendar of their financial incentive Zooms that people can log into and find out more as the process unrolls. And also the Silicon Valley Electric Auto Association will have a table, and they might also have information about financing, but usually it's Ariane Erickson who has the latest, and she does a lot of research and can come up to with the information at the moment. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's good. And as long as we have that information, because I think it's gonna really have an impact on the market itself, because the incentives won't be like they've been up until now, in terms of not paying attention to where the cars are coming from or where they built or where they are assembled. It's going to be a limited number of car manufacturers that are going to be able to advertise to their customers that they can get a tax rebate. It's going to make a big difference in terms of, so I think it's going to be important to have someone explaining that, since I believe people that will come to the fair will be should be interested in EVs in general, and will be asking that kind of question.
Yes, and hopefully we'll have as much of an answer as can be possible at that point in time.
Right.
Yeah, that information will be available. And so there is a short list of cars that will qualify. And we'll try to have that information on the vehicle.
Okay.
So there's an information sheet that gets put on each vehicle, and it tells the range, it can have a dealer address on it, but the range, the price, and any incentives it might qualify for.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, good.
You mentioned charging stations. So you're saying you're going to have a display of the type of charging stations that people can install in their home, in their garage, or is that?
Oh, I haven't gotten that far yet, but there will be a display of the fact that there are about 300 EV charging stations at all the distributed through all K through 12 schools in the city of Los Altos. And they're available to the public from 4 o'clock until 7 a.m. For charging. And when school's not in session, so weekends or vacations, all summer, etc. But there will also be a display board of it's called the app PlugShare, shows for any zip code or any area where the charging stations are available. There are apps for trip planning and so forth. And I know several of the commissioners have electric vehicles. I know Laura and Rashina have electric cars. And when I think that I know Dawn has an electric car, so they can correct me on anything I'm saying here. But I also have the proposed federal and state plan to electrify for long trips the map of the corridors where the installation of EV charging stations are planned, hopefully for the near future, but definitely will happen.
Yeah, I was actually not thinking about public charging station, but more about the type of charging station or charging system you can install in your home. So I was thinking about.
Well, I'll make sure that the Silicon Valley Electric Auto Association has something on that home charging.
Yeah, that would be useful because I think you have different options.
Yep.
And very low cost one. I think it's people need to be aware that they can really have a way of charging their car reasonably fast. And being a low-cost option versus something that's sometimes advertised by manufacturers, which ends up costing you $1,500 or $2,000, when you can we can get something for the quarter of that price usually.
Right. I can look into inviting some of those people. They were at the Mountain View Earth Day event last year, but also 80% of people charge at home.
Right.
And so you plug it in and you can leave it overnight. You can even with a phone tell the car when it should stop charging. Usually you want to charge your car only up to 80% to lengthen the life of the battery. I won't go into too much details, but yeah, I'll write that down, Bruno. I'll make sure that's part of the display.
Thank you.
Charging options.
I also have a suggestion is the, I think, installer for those home charger, because, you know, I also have an EV. I have it since 2018. I think at the time I had to ask my friend, you know, for people who can do that, because the voltage requirement. I think it's always helpful because these are very practical issue for people who want to adopt EV.
Yes, thank you for having an electric vehicle, but also thank you for bringing up that topic. It was I just plug into a 120 outlet like you plug your lamp into, but for people who want 240, I was under the impression that any electrician could install them. Did you find that you had to hunt for a specific person who knew how to install them?
Well, I sort of get a name from my friend because she owned the EV. You know, this was like 4 years ago. Nowadays, probably, yeah, it's pretty common. But I know that like a friend of mine who was like, whose home charging didn't work, and she always go to work and just leave her car in the garage and charge whole day there. But the charging station sometimes is problematic, the public one, and she didn't get enough. So I think there are some of these kind of practical matters it would be good to cover.
Okay, so cover perhaps have information about local electricians who have experience installing home chargers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. That's a great idea.
Any other comments, questions, suggestions? So one last question, and I promise that's it. Is like I know you don't have a time, you don't have a date, and you don't know how long it's going to, how long you're gonna have the fair. You're thinking about half a day, a full day. What are you leaning towards right now?
Maybe 11 to 3 because the community center I think has activities from 4 o'clock on. But something like 4 hours. How does that sound to you?
Sounds good to me, but yeah, I mean, I think people will need that, especially if we have a lot of cars displayed. I think we need enough time for people to, and then plus the booth and everything. I think we need to, make sure we have enough time allowed for people to be able to spend some time asking questions, looking at cars, asking questions, technical questions, and all that stuff at the booth stations and so on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I would say a minimum of 4 hours would be good.
Yes, and just mentioning publicity or getting the word out about the EV event. I've talked to Elizabeth Ward at the History Museum, and I've talked to Brian Bao at the library, and both of them are willing to publicize the event. And even have, at least at the library, Brian was willing to have, or excited about the idea of having like a display of books about electric cars and offering the community room at the library. He would even waive the fee if we wanted to have a speaker about electric cars at the library. So, I'm hoping people will get the information they need. I know that we had an event at Los Altos High School in February for only, let's see, it was only for, it was under 3 hours. And I think people, we followed up and people felt they had enough time to talk to the car owners that they wanted to talk to and even visit all the booths in that amount of time. We had 18 electric vehicles at that event, plus an e-bike display. So I'm hoping you'll feel okay about a 4-hour event.
That sounds pretty good. So I was wondering if, from the city standpoint, in terms of publicity, if we could have signs posted downtown like a week or two before the event.
I know Greentown Los Altos is planning to take out an ad in the town crier. I don't know, but perhaps Tanya could speak to this suggestion. And we're having a meet. Tanya and Casey have schedule a meeting tomorrow afternoon. I especially want to make sure that people in South Los Altos know about the event. A lot of times we only think about publicity in North Los Altos, but perhaps flyers that would go in windows in businesses in South and also North Los Altos, even maybe around the area, the shopping centers. There's a shopping center at the corner of San Antonio and El Camino. I don't know if, Tanya, if we've thought about the funds to have a banner. Sometimes there is a banner over Main Street.
Yeah, that's something we're still, that's on the list further down the line, but we, as far as the signs posted in downtown, we can definitely discuss that and add that as an idea for publicity. We're still fleshing out the timeline of that, and Greentown is going to come up with those flyers so that we can have a unified flyer to post and hand out and post on various social media platforms and such. So that's definitely on the list. Thank you, Bruno. And any other suggestions on publicity are welcome.
Thank you. Any more suggestions, questions, comments? All right. So I'm sure we'll get an update at some point, maybe in February, to get a full plan discussed in front of the commission. Let's try to shoot for the meeting in February if that's possible.
Yes.
With all the details.
Yeah,
But it's good. Great work done. Great work done so far.
Thank
All
you.
right. Moving on, city staff updates.
We don't have any updates at this time, but I did just want to say sorry before we had moved on is thank you to everyone on the subcommittee and especially to Sybil. Very lucky to have her helping us plan, and she has a lot of experience in planning these EV fairs, so thank you. But no city staff updates at this time.
All right, thank you, Tanya. And then finally, commissioners' reports and comments. Do you guys have anything to report and comment on? Commissioner Liu Xiaoping, do you have anything new on the?
Oh, I thought about, yes. Our council woman Fleecor, I think she updated everyone in last month's environmental commission meeting about the Lehigh cement plant. And so tomorrow, I think, yeah, it's tomorrow. There's going to be a meeting. It's for all county supervisors board. And one of the agenda items is that they're going to discuss either they're going to modify or revoke the use permit by Lehigh cement plant because of their violations over the years. And so that's going to be on the agenda. Yeah, for them to vote on that.
So that would mean that if it's revoked, they wouldn't be able to use the plant for anything.
They won't be able to continue operate the cement plant operation. Yeah.
Okay, just the cement plant operation.
Yeah, just the cement plant. Yeah. I think the Stevens Quarry issues, they have asked for expansion actually prior to the pandemic lockdown. So because they haven't addressed the reclamation plan properly, so I think that all the especially the county are looking at, they're not giving them okay for the expansion unless that a very sound reclamation plan are in place. But I think you probably have also heard that the county are considering potentially purchase the land is counted, but it's just that, you know, some of the costs can purchase that so that they wouldn't continue operate. But that is still in discussion. Yeah. Find ways, they're going to find ways. And I think that it's a unanimous, they all agree that they all consider, they want to support that, that proposal.
Thank you for the update. Don, you had another?
I'll just add one thing. I believe that if you go to the website for Green Foothills, they have some links on how you as an individual can send comments to the supervisor in the upcoming actions that they're potentially, or that are under consideration. So as a citizen, you can go there and submit your comments, and Green Foothills has some suggestions. The Community for Green Foothills, their website. I did it a few days ago, so I can't remember exactly. I don't have the site or exactly, but they did a pretty good job in analyzing and explaining what the county supervisors are going to consider.
Mm.
All right. Any other? Oh, I wanted to ask if there are any comments or reports on the previous council meetings from any of the commissioners that are attending the council meetings. No. Maybe they're not at this meeting. So, Tanya, can I ask you to, I know we had some people assigned to the council meetings in November, and I believe also the council meeting of tomorrow. I don't remember who was assigned to these meetings.
I'm assigned to tomorrow night's meeting, but it's just an organizational meeting.
Right.
But I'm probably going to go anyway.
Yeah, I'm probably going to. And the previous council meetings, do you have the list with you, Tanya? Or I don't have it with me, so I don't remember who was assigned to the previous meetings.
I don't have it on me right now, but I can send that out tomorrow if that's helpful.
And I think what we need to do is, since we're not meeting until the beginning of February, we need to assign commissioners to the upcoming council meetings. For sure in January and probably for the first 2 weeks of February.
Okay.
Do you have the dates?
Not off the top of my head. I do not, but I can also include that. So
can I ask you to send a follow-up email to the commissioners with the list of the dates of the future council meetings up to, let's say, February 15,
mm-hmm.
and have the commissioners decide which one they want to attend?
Yes.
Thank you.
I can do that.
Anything else? One thing I wanted to let you know is that, let me check on my agenda first. There is a Zoom meeting tomorrow, if any of you were interested, which is about the recent legislations and policy developments that have come out of Sacramento over the past year. It's would be slightly different from what from the presentation from Ken Branson, which was really focusing on what his office has been doing. And that meeting is organized. It's organized by an organization that includes CivicWell, I'm sorry. And Roger Dickinson, who came last year to present to the commission about policy developments and new legislations, will be actually one of the presenters at that Zoom meeting. If you are interested, it's tomorrow It's tomorrow. Check. It's tomorrow at 11 a.m. from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And I don't have the details of the Zoom link, but I think Tanya and Casey have it. So if you're interested, they probably can provide it to you.
Yes.
Okay, so then potential future agenda items, I think we've had the discussion throughout the meeting. So I think we're pretty clear in terms of what we would have as next agenda items. Definitely the EV fair in February, and maybe depending on where we are on either the MWENDO, the REACH codes, or the tree preservation guidelines, we can have one of those presentations as well. And then potentially something from CCS or an update on block power. So any other agenda items that you would want to bring up? One potential agenda item, in addition also to having someone neutral coming to the commission to present about the new net energy metering, which is another one for sometime this next year. But another one that I was thinking would be useful is in terms of going back to the food diversion rate and the diversion rates in general. I'm wondering if it makes sense for us to have an update from Mission Trail garbage and have the new data shared with us and have a chance to have discussions as we start thinking about increasing our diversion rate in general. And I think with the last one we had was in 2021, I believe. So it would be 2 years already. And then the last one, which I need to get back to you on this, is having a presentation from SVCE on their new tariffs on bill pilot program, which is in the works right now. And they had told me that they should be able to have enough information to share sometime in January. So maybe they could be an agenda item for the February meeting as well. Any other agenda items from other commissioners? All right, thank you very much. This concludes the meeting for today. Again, it was kind of a little bit long. I'm sorry about that, but I thought we had very good discussions. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice end of
Thank
year.
you.
Have
Bye.
a good holiday. Have a good time. Relax and come refresh for next year.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you,
you, everyone.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays, everyone.